The next step is to actually go in and score the proposals using the rubric and provide your feedback. So after you have read all of the proposals you've been assigned, at least all the proposals for one section, then it will be time for you to complete the rubric. So there's some things I'd like you to keep in mind. For example, these are 1,000-word proposals. I know that there are some professional organizations that ask for very, very short proposals, maybe 300 to 500 words. And there are other professional organizations that ask for much longer proposals or maybe even a complete paper. It's important to remember that for NCFR proposals, they are limited to 1,000 words. That means that the authors can give more detail than maybe one of the very short proposals, but really not very much detail at all. So the authors will have made decisions about what they think is the important information to include and what they have to exclude. That means they have to be clear and succinct, but they cannot expand on the fine points of their projects. So in general, you're looking for glaring issues and your overall impressions. So the first thing you will be asked to do is to think about whether you think this proposal was submitted to an appropriate section. One thing I want to say here is that many proposals could fit in several different sections. And therefore, it's not your opinion about whether it's the best section for this proposal, but do you think it is appropriate for the section to which it was submitted? So as an example, there may be a study of the health and well-being of refugee women using a feminist perspective and resulting in implications for both family life educators and for family therapists. If you think about that, there are several different sections that those authors could have chosen to submit the proposal. For example, it could have been families and health because it was about health and well-being. It could be the international section because it was including refugees, the family therapy section, or the education and enrichment section because of the implications. So it is not your choice where the best section is, but just to make sure that it's a good enough fit. If you determine that it is not a good fit for the section to which it has been submitted, then you will be asked to make a suggestion with a pull-down menu of the section that you think would be a better fit. The next question you're asked to review is how complete is the work described in the proposal? The important question here is, do you think a polished presentation is possible by conference time in November? All work does not have to be completed, but it should be far enough along in its process that you have confidence that it will be a high-quality presentation by the time the conference rolls around. The next question you're asked to use the Likert scale for is how appropriate is the approach that is used in the project in the proposal. So there can be different kinds of approaches. For example, if it's a research study, you may want to look at the methodological approach. Is that appropriate considering the research questions and the implications, for example? It may be the educational or pedagogical approach if we're looking at a program or a resource that the proposal is describing. Or is the therapeutic approach appropriate in a family therapy proposal, for example? So when you're asked approach, please think more broadly than just methodological approach if you're looking at a proposal that follows a different kind of project. The next question you'll be asked is how strong is the research support for the proposal? So whether it's a research study or a theoretical piece or an educational or therapeutic or policy project, each one of those is expected to have good, solid evidence for why the proposal includes the kinds of methodologies and what is done and suggested. So is there good, strong research support? Then, how about theoretical support? So once again, no matter what kind of proposal it is, Does it have a tie to a theoretical perspective that provides the lens for which the work is being presented? Next, you'll be asked to identify how much potential do you think this proposal has for a presentation that will stimulate new knowledge or maybe further innovation. So is this adding something to our field? Is it moving the field forward? That is ultimately the goal of having a professional conference for our organization. So we want to make sure that the presentations are adding and moving us forward instead of just rehashing the same thing over and over. Then you'll be asked, what is your overall impression? So for example, how about the mechanics? Is it well written? Is the proposal logically organized? Does it include appropriate references? Do the references match what is in the text of the proposal? This is your chance to really say, here's my overall impression about the way that the proposal was written and presented, and is it a complete enough proposal that I get a good idea of what this presentation would look like in November. I mentioned earlier that there may be some special criteria that you need to consider. So here for symposia, you will need to really think about, are each of the proposals that has been included, are they together creating a well-integrated presentation? So symposia include several papers that they're asking to be presented together in one session. And these are not done blind. The authors' names are included, so you have some idea of how much confidence you have about whether this is an appropriate person to be representing the topic that they're including. So what's really important in a symposium is that it is well integrated and that they all fit together in a way that presents the topic with a complete perspective. Also, for workshops, it's important for the proposal to really describe that an actual workshop session will be presented at the conference. This is not an evaluation study of a program. This is not just sharing a resource and saying, hey, here's a workshop that I know of. This means that the workshop will actually be presented during one of the session slots at the conference. So has the proposal given you the information that you need to see what would be included in that workshop, and is that appropriate? So I mentioned earlier that a perfect score would be 30 points from the 6 different questions that use the Likert type scale. This year, the program committee has discussed using a cutoff score of 22. So proposals that receive scores of 22 and above will be considered for acceptance. That's something for you to think about as the reviewer when your score is generated for you in the Oxford Abstracts site. So as you put your score in, it will add them up for you, and you will be able to see what the final score is that you have given. Questions to ask yourself are, does this score actually reflect what my overall impression is? For example, if the score is at or near that 22 cutoff score, what does your overall impression tell you? Is that consistent with the quality of the proposal? Do you think it should be accepted? Do you think maybe it falls just below what should be accepted? So pay special attention to that final score and see, is that really showing what your overall impression is? Now, sometimes there may be something that the authors just completely missed including in the proposal. So let's say, for example, there was no theory that was included, and you really had no choice but to give it a 1. That may bring that overall score down. But that is something that is important for you to indicate to the section chair as you are sharing your review of that proposal. Something else to remember is that scores may be used by the section to help identify award winners. So think about the score that you have provided for the proposal, and does it really reflect or identify whether this proposal should be considered for a section award? Most of those awards go to proposals that are in the very high 20s or maybe those very rare proposals that receive a score of 30. Some additional issues to consider is that you will be asked to suggest the format that you think would be best for the presentation of the proposal. And by format, I mean paper or poster or roundtable or those kinds of formats. You will be given the author's choices of what they would like to do for the presentation format. And it also will say if the authors do not want to accept a particular format. So look at that information and then consider what you think is an appropriate format for that particular presentation. You may agree with the authors, or you may think that it actually fits better in a different kind of format. You have a chance to change your review by going back into the Oxford system anytime up until the cutoff date of March 28th. So if you do these reviews early in the process and then you have some time to think about it and you consider that maybe you should have done something differently, feel free to log back into the system and change your review, because those will not be provided to the section chairs until after the March 28th cutoff.